This is John Murky, and I'm going to cover a new implementation guide released from IHE, Basic Audit Log Patterns, otherwise known as Basic Audit. So the problem that Basic Audit is addressing is that Audit Trail and Node Authentication, ATNA, includes a foundation of how to log events, and it's a very powerful schema supporting security, privacy, and other log-worthy events. We also have FIRE as an access model, creating, reading, updating, deleting, searching. And we have security tokens that are being used to either secure the access to data or to secure any kind of event. It might be a workflow event. And then lastly, patient data are being accessed, and it would be important to record these so that we can provide transparency to the patients themselves. So the need that's being addressed by Basic Audit is to provide some reusable patterns, some profiles on the FIRE audit event for various things. First off is when a FIRE RESTful action happens, create, read, update, delete, or search, how would that be recorded in an audit event? Some consistency for when security tokens are used, be they OAuth or SAML, be the event a FIRE RESTful action or some other event that is just being recorded but was secured by a security token. And then some additions around improving privacy transparency, making sure that when that RESTful event included accessing a patient's data, that the RESTful audit event has the appropriate information so that it can be traced to that specific patient, or when a consent has impacted an authorization decision, or even the specific details about when a disclosure has happened, what should be recorded. So some profiles of audit event do exist. For example, within IHE governance, there's a requirement to do security consideration sections, both in Volume 1 and Volume 2. And in Volume 2, often there is a subsection in the security considerations that covers what would the audit log profile look like when this transaction has happened. So many IHE profiles have audit log profiles within them, but they're not very consistently documented. So one of the things that we expect the basic audit will be used for is to drive one, use of audit event in more places than we've currently defined, but two, when a transaction is being invented and the security consideration section of that says, well, this is the audit event, that audit event will be refined off of the basic audit profiles. So basic audit is a content profile. It's not a transaction profile, it's a content profile. Its content is transported with ATNA. So we have an audit creator and we have an audit consumer actor defined within basic audit, and we define the profiles of the events being recorded through ATNA. So first content defined within the basic audit is the audit event for when RESTful activities happen. And you see the diagram here, diagramming just any particular secure client, any particular secure server, and they're communicating with some kind of RESTful activity in number 1, and the results are returned in number 4. Basic audit isn't really defining 1 and 4. What basic audit is defining is what gets recorded in number 3 and what gets recorded in number 5. So these are recognitions of that this activity, 1, 2, 4, has happened, and how it would be recorded. So we address this for create, read, update, delete, and execute. And we have a basic profile where a patient is not involved in the activity, So activities against vocabulary or activities against directories. And then there's another set of profiles that show a refinement of that basic profile where a patient was involved. So a create of an observation or a search on observations. And then for all of the profiles in basic audit, we have multiple examples. So when a security token is used, it indicates how was this activity that's being recorded secured. So this section has some fragments of a audit event that can be applied to any other audit event being recorded. So the profiles on the previous page about a create of an observation being recorded. Well, when that create is secured by a security token, you would combine the two profiles. So in this case, if it's an OAuth token, there's one set of ways to record things. If it's a SAML token, there's a different way of recording things. There's different information in each one of them. There is two different classes of profiling of the SAML token. There is a minimal class, which is recommended. The minimal class just records the identification of the security token and not any of the content of the security token. This is under the expectation that the one who would be looking at the audit events, if they're authorized to see the contents of the token, have access to the token issuer system. So they can always take the identity of the token and find the details of the token by introspection or by looking at that identifier issuer. There's a different set of profiles in here for comprehensive. These would be examples of environments where the use of the audit may not have access to the token issuer. This may be in a federation. This may be in an environment where the token issuer doesn't record information for very long, and you need a longer period of the audit events. And next up are the audit event profiles for privacy. We already saw within the RESTful activities that there is a set of profiles that indicate when the patient was a subject of the RESTful activity. That's an example of privacy transparency. There's also some specific audit event profiles for recording that an access control decision was made, and that decision was made based on the details within a consent. And then lastly, when a privacy disclosure has happened, how would the important information be recorded? Who released it, when, to whom, what, where, and why? So as was indicated before, we do expect that basic audit will be reused and sub-profiled within security consideration sections. So things like MHD or PDQM or PIXM. We've looked at how these would be refined, and indeed we're actively working on refining them so that the audit event that was defined in them before will be redefined. It's slightly different, but it's defined off of the basic audit profile. So we import those profiles, we add a subtype to indicate the transaction number, and then we also add a comment to indicate which of the MHD actors is the client or the server within the basic audit profiles. So that's the quick introduction to basic audit log patterns. It's a set of audit log patterns that can be used directly. They don't need to be further profiled, but they can be further profiled, such as into a security consideration section or into your workflow. They're available within the IT infrastructure publications. There is a discussion group available on the Fire Chat for discussions, questions, concerns, and I'd love to see some success. Thank you.